All right, how we doing, everybody? My name is Brian Lewis. I am the Director of Marketing here at OrthoFi. First and foremost, I really just want to thank you all for joining us for the latest edition of the OrthoFi webinar series. I'm really excited to be here tonight, and I'm really excited for everybody to hear from our special guest speaker, Dr. Alyssa Emory-Carter. Before we get started, I'd like to say a quick thank you to all of our OrthoFi clients that are here with us tonight. Together, we've helped start more than 900,000 patients, and we're extremely grateful to be your partner as we continue helping patients access quality orthodontic treatment. If you're not a member, if you're not a part of OrthoFi family, that's great. I mean, that's okay too. I'd like to personally welcome you to being here. I think you'll get a lot out of this tonight. I know you're as practice busy, so thank you for spending your evening with us here as well. So we want this to be super interactive. So if anybody has any questions, we'll make sure that Dr. Emory-Carter is going to take some time at the end of her lecture to go through some of those questions, and we'll answer them live at the end. With that, I would love to introduce Dr. Emory-Carter. Again, appreciate you guys being here tonight. We hope you ask a lot of questions. And with that, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Brian. I want to thank everyone that has logged in tonight, and I hope you all benefit from this webinar. And if there's any questions at all, super casual, just be sure and ask them, and I'm happy to answer anything and honestly that you may have questions about. So we'll get started. Talked about penny wise and pound foolish. I think this is a really great way to explain a lot of things in our profession that we have to consider when bringing into our practice. And so we consider the economics and the opportunity. It's not about the money that matters, but how you use it that determines value. And I just love that quote, because it doesn't really matter how much money or where the money comes from, but it matters how you spend or utilize that money correctly. So just to put this out there, I am a KOL for dental monitoring, Spark, and on-demand orthodontist. What you will not see up here is OrthoFi. So I am here tonight because I'm passionate about OrthoFi versus having shares or being paid, unless Brian knows something I don't know. But honestly, I'm here because OrthoFi has helped our practice, and I hope that I can share with you some of the things that is done for us. So if you've heard me speak before, you know that I really, really value time. And if we think about the most valuable thing in our practice, that thing is time. And your accountants, as you're doing your annual reviews, or as you just met with them about your taxes, may say that time is not the most valuable thing. They may say, oh, well, your team is, because it's taking so much of your P&L, or OrthoFi is your biggest expense. And so how do we decipher if that truly is an expense or an investment to us? And if we think about how we look at time, we can manage it two ways. And that is proactively and reactively. And I think as orthodontists, we really try to manage our time proactively. We attempt to get information before patients come in our door. We try to tell patients how to take care of their braces before they go home. We try to give care instructions for aligners, et cetera, to prevent after hours emergencies or work or things that are unanticipated. We always schedule a next patient exam, and that next patient exam is set for what we think we're going to be doing and for the length of time. But in reality, a lot of what we end up doing every day in our practices ends up being reactive. And when that happens, our schedules tend to get backed up, and we have to start juggling a lot of things because something has disrupted what we had planned to happen. And therefore, we weren't prepared for that. And that leads to the feeling of being overwhelmed. And so how does this relate to OrthoFi? We were fortunate, and our practice was growing. And we, in my humble opinion, we kind of failed to prepare for the growth. And so as we were growing, a lot of things in our practice seemed to be getting backlogged. And our team was getting frustrated. They were working through lunches. They were staying late. It probably reflected on the amount of time our patients had to wait in our practice to be seen. Management issues, so getting behind on insurance and referral letters and pending and et cetera. So all of these things were kind of spiraling, and it just reached this point where we said, okay, what can we do to help our practice? And when we talk about changing things in our practice, I divide things into these 4 buckets: the patients, the team, the doctor, and the business as a whole. And we all should put the patients first. So that's number 1. And if we're going to add something to our practice, how does it affect all of these things? And so there's different areas of each of these too. So in the business, there's administrative and clinical, there's finance, there's operations, there's people, etc. So how do we take this? Well, if you just start at square one and you say, okay, patients come first, what's the first thing that we could try to look at and see if we can help our systems that we have in our practice to help value and manage our time more proactively? And so for me, that was the new patient process. And to be completely honest with you, I probably took for granted everything that the team had on their plates that they were doing to take care of the new patient process. So the new patient process has all of these things tied into it. And if you look at this, this is just part of it. And each of these things requires time and energy from our team members to make sure that they happen before the patient really ever walks into the practice. And then once they walk into the practice, there's a series of events that has to happen. Now, what happens after the patient's in the practice? There's a whole nother thing that happens. So either they're ready for treatment, they don't start treatment and they go into pending. If they start, then they now have insurance claims, billing, contracts, all these items that need to be set up and then continue to take care of outside of the clinical work that they even need to have their treatment completed. So how does that tie in to OrthoFi? Well, can OrthoFi and partnering with OrthoFi help us be more proactive in our time management? And this is where some of the things that I have found have helped our practice. So number 1, we can deliver a better onboarding experience. One thing that I enjoyed from OrthoFi is their mobile forms. They text the patient can do it from mobile-friendly information on their phone, fill the forms out. Why is that important? Well, they also send text reminders if they don't fill them out to try to get them completed. So this is convenient for the patient so they can complete it when they have their insurance card with them, when they have the information they need at their own time, maybe when they're sitting down in the evening versus trying to run kids around after school while they're on the phone with you, et cetera, et cetera. But why is this so important that they even fill out these forms? Well, no one wants to come 15 minutes early to an appointment anymore to fill out paper forms. But in addition to that, if they have their forms filled out, then OrthoFi can verify their insurance prior to the exam. So why is that important? Well, if OrthoFi gets the information in time, they will complete 96.8% of the eligibility checks prior to the new patient exam. That's overall out of all the patients that you have that walk into your practice. If you have a patient that comes in and you enter their information less than 2 hours before their exam, they're still able to complete 75% of those checks. So if that would have happened in the past, our team would be running around or someone would have to spend the next hour on the phone with insurance trying to verify those benefits before the patient gets there. And what does that do? That's reactive management of your time because they were already delegated to do something else during that time. But now we put the information in and OrthoFi can do that and we can continue managing our time the way that we have planned to do so before the patient got added to the schedule. But why is it so important that their insurance is verified before the exam? So this is really cool data, and I wasn't really aware of this until after we actually became clients with OrthoFi, is that when you verify their insurance, if they already have it verified before, your conversion rate goes up like 13 or 14%. And so it's directly correlated with those forms being completed. And so for them to have an app that's convenient for the patient, auto remind the patient to get it completed, verify the insurance before the patient walks in the door, already increases your chance of converting patients. And that wasn't something that we were looking for when we joined OrthoFi, but it's something that has helped and becomes important in our practice. So, and we'll talk more about this in a little bit. So what else does it help with? When the patient walks into the room, our TCs no longer need to have a conversation to try to get to know our patients quite as well while they're in the consult room. We already have a little bit of information that they've provided in these forms that we can study ahead of time. What type of information? Well, one is that it'll tell us some hobbies. So they have something to relate to the patient. It'll say he likes soccer, he likes basketball, he likes tailgating at OSU football games, whatever it is. Another thing that it does is the patient has already told us when they're interested in treatment, if they think it's urgent, if they want to be treated in less than a month. And it also would tell us what's important to them: a low monthly payment, a pay in full, shorter treatment time, or short payment terms, et cetera. So that allows our TCs to better guide the TC conversation and slider when the patient's already in the chair, which saves time. Another thing that's really cool about OrthoFi that I also didn't realize when we first started with them, and I thought it was just a slider, is that it's not just a slider. For those of you that don't know, I absolutely love another product that we use called dental monitoring. And I love the AI that it provides for us and what I've learned that it can do for our practice. But OrthoFi slider actually has some AI built into it. And why is that important? Well, instead of it just being this fee presentation tool, it now has built-in guardrails and incentives that can help the cash flow of the practice. So based on the credit tiers, based on all of the data that they have collected from the OrthoFi practices, they are able to say, hey, based on this treatment plan and these payments and this type of credit score, this is where we know the patient's most likely to accept treatment. But we're also going to, at the same time, make sure we protect the cash flow of the practice by putting our pay in full discount adjusted for that automatically. And we're also going to add a tiny bit of interest right here. So you can turn those things off, but OrthoFi already knows the highest rate of acceptance and why they're putting those things there. So they're helping your practice with their auto intelligent slider, which is incredible. I didn't even know that until after we joined. And, you know, when I talk about AI, I get excited. So it was one thing I loved. Something else that they have is sign at home 24/7. So if a patient happens to come in and they don't accept treatment that day, they can accept treatment from home, from the convenience of their home, when they talk to their spouse, etc., 24/7. And a lot of times we will get notifications at 11 p.m. or 5 a.m. that someone has signed up for treatment. And those aren't times when our TCs would normally be talking to the patients and parents about the treatment contract. So that has allowed our practice to have multiple starts from home and increase our overall production. But what's something unique about this? One of those items is that all of the sign at homes average their down payments and their pay in fulls are higher than when they're in your office. And if you think about why that might be, there could be a few reasons, but one could be we're so used to presenting with TC bias. Another reason could be that they have more time with the significant other that they're dealing with, or a different parent or guardian, and they're able to say, okay, let's actually put more down instead of being more cautious when they're right there in your chair. So this helps protect your cash flow too. If you have more sign at homes and they're known to have, on average, higher down payments and higher pay in fulls. And if they don't sign at home that evening or the next morning or soon after, then they go into a pending dashboard in OrthoFi. And one thing that our practice and our TCs kind of said was clunky is in the practice management software system, you can pull pending reports, but you have to kind of go in and read the notes and see who kind of contacted them last, et cetera, et cetera. There was no, if one TC was pulling it and then a few days later someone else was pulling it, they had to make sure they were reading each other's notes or remembered when they followed up with each patient last based on that report. With OrthoFi, you can automate exactly when you want these reminders to come back up into your system. So you could say, okay, I want to remind them of this in 2 weeks because it's your normal protocol, or because mom said that's when she's getting her tax refund, et cetera, et cetera. And you can type notes. So it helps organize and automate the pending and save a lot of time when it comes to filtering out and following up with patients in your pending pool. Another really cool fact here is that the clients that OrthoFi has, the ones that utilize the pending dashboard and keep following up with all of their pending patients, have an 18% higher conversion rate. And I don't know about you guys, but I would take 18% higher conversion any day and an extra $160,000 in production for an average practice. So how does partnering with OrthoFi help increase the value of our time. Well, we just went over a lot of things that OrthoFi can help us with, but what do we mean by that? So one thing that OrthoFi can do is help us regain time that we were spending on eligibility checks. So OrthoFi did 876 checks for our practice in 2021. This is actual data from our practice. We estimated that each eligibility check takes about 30 minutes. Now, if you talk to a TC or your administrative people in your office, they're probably going to say, oh, it takes an hour and a half. Yes, some of them do. Some of them take 45 minutes. Some of them take less than 30 minutes. But on average, we thought 30 minutes was a very conservative consideration. That equals 438 hours of time, which is almost 11 weeks of time just spent on the phone verifying insurance benefits. That's valuable employee time that could be used doing something else when OrthoFi can provide this service to you and probably do it more effectively, more efficiently, and without disturbing your time management in your practice. They also probably, in some cases, do it more legally than you know, just because they know all the rules and regulations and keep up with all the insurance changes and codings. They help prevent you from getting in trouble with insurance companies. So where would we spend this time though? Now am I going to have to fire my employee? Absolutely not. Many of times, the number one detractor from having more production in our practice is because all of the patients that don't start, whether they're not ready to start and they go into OBS or they deny treatment, go into these buckets. And our TCs may try to follow up with them, but as they're trying to juggle all the balls and wear all the hats, they tend to start putting these off after a couple of follow-ups. And there's some data out there that shows a patient needs 7 to 9 touch points to actually convert. And most of the TCs only follow up 2 to 3 times. So if you could take those 11 weeks and 400 and something hours, instead of them just spending wasted minutes on the phone verifying insurance, when there's someone else outside of your practice that can do that well and do it timely for you, and they could spend all of that time in going over these pools, then how beneficial is that for your practice? Like, that's increasing the value of the time because that's increased production for your practice. Something else you'll see on this chart is the first 2 columns from new patients added to exams. There's almost 200 patients that never even made it for the exam. So what if they could spend more time doing confirmation calls, making sure the forms are filled out, enhancing the new patient experience before they ever come into the practice. Brian Wright from New Patient Group has recently at Orthopreneur Summit last year said, we now have less attention span as humans than a goldfish. And so to me, that says we're probably less able to multitask as well, because we can't focus on doing as much at once. And that's not anyone's fault, it's just the reality. And so how can we prevent all these distractions and help our team do what they should be doing in our practice and doing it best to help increase the value of their time directly and make their value of their time worth more in our practice? And this is one way. Now, what about the confirmation calls? Why does that matter? So some more data from OrthoFi here is that as soon as a patient leaves your office, if they're ready for treatment, they don't start, you automatically drop their chances of starting 20 to 50%. If they actually schedule the start before they walk out of your office, there's still a 20% chance they're not going to come to that start. If they don't schedule at all, there's a 50% chance you're never going to see them again. If they sign the contract at least, and they've committed financially, there's still a 1.4% chance that they might not come. So the best thing that we can do is get the patients to start the same day, because we know that that's 100% conversion. And at a minimum, at least sign the financials. So that is being proactive. How can we proactively prepare for the same day start using our time wisely and doing confirmation calls and making sure that insurance is verified, all of which OrthoFi can help manage our dashboards and our time for. So if OrthoFi can help with all of these processes that we brought up in the beginning that are involved in bringing a new patient into our practice, from the forms to the dashboards to the verifications, to the amazing automated slider that kind of sets up for us to help us convert at a better rate, to help us protect our cash flow in our practice, to help patients sign from home and they can discuss with someone else. And then after the patient starts, they help with the filing of the forms, the processing of the payments. They have a dashboard for doctors for us to review KPIs instantly. So if they can help that, does that increase the value of our time and our practice where our TCs and things can do things different? So let's talk about it. So do you do same day starts? Well, what if you already do? We already do same day starts, Dr. Carter. I don't really think that this is going to benefit us. Well, let's take a look. So another product that we use that I really respect the people that have this product is Gauge. And Gauge average practices, in my humble opinion, I have no data on this, are probably likely to be higher averages than the actual US national average. And there's no way for me to prove that, but I don't think you would be using Gauge if your practice isn't even to a point that you need help running metrics and things in your practice. So the Gauge average practices versus OrthoFi average practices, same day starts are doubled. And even with that being said, same day starts for OrthoFi clients are still less than 50% across the board. And I know that it feels like we're constantly adding starts to our schedules the same day, but if you add up what you are actually doing, it may be less than what you perceive yourself to be doing. So what do I mean? Well, let's look at our practice. So before OrthoFi, I thought we were doing a lot of same day starts. And what I found out was that we actually were only doing 34%. Then in 2020, our first month with OrthoFi, first month only, we instantly went up to 62.9% same day starts. So what does that tell you? Does it tell you that maybe those patients had more information before they ever came to our office and maybe were more prepared for a same day start? They already knew their benefits. They had the option of the slider and the payment choices that they wanted. Maybe. Well, then we keep going in the Q4. So right after we started, but a few months after we started, we were already up to 66.2%. And what's even more amazing is Q4 of 2021, we were up to 82%. And so 82% of our patients that were ready to start were doing same day starts. And that means 100% of those patients converted. So we only had 18% of our patients leaving that would even drop to 20 to 50% chance of not coming, which still seems like a lot, but it's a heck of a lot better than the US national average at 19.4%. That is an incredible difference. That's 50% difference on what's walking out of your practice, 60% different of what's walking out of your practice that may not ever come back. And that's production walking out of the door. So what does that mean? After 1 month, 85% higher same day starts. After 1 year, 141% higher, which was 323% higher than the US national average. And I think that's pretty impressive. And that time period, we didn't add anything else to our practice that would have helped us contribute to the same day start philosophy. Okay, so those things sound great, Dr. Carter. I understand how it could help save our time, but there's some concerns I have about OrthoFi. First, I've really negotiated a great rate with my credit card company. I have 1.9%. I get this question almost anytime I meet with people or speak with people. So I was adamant about making sure I presented this to you all. Do you actually know what you're paying though? So the credit card rate that you negotiate is the rate only. Credit card processing vendors are very deceptive. So they have their rate, 1.9, 1.8, whatever you've negotiated. But on top of that, almost all of them have a per transaction fee, a failed payment or chargeback fee, a compliant and non-compliant fee, a membership fee that you have to pay. And then on top of that, if someone changes their card they want to use, they have a new payment method fee and an online payment fee. So how does that total? Well, let's look at an actual practice and see what that means. So negotiated rate of 2%. But when you actually look at the statements and add up all of the fees that the credit card company charges, their rate fees were 2%. But the additional hidden fees added up to be an actual rate of 4.52%. So what does that mean for OrthoFi? Well, OrthoFi's rate, including all fees, is just 2.5% total. So take all the 2% plus all the fees and narrow it down to 2.5%, which is about almost half of what this person was paying, even though they thought they had a negotiated rate less than OrthoFi. There's sometimes when OrthoFi's rate is even a little bit lower because of new breeze, but if you have questions about that, we can ask it at the end. And so some of us will try to get penny wise and pound foolish and go crazy over, well, I've negotiated 1.9, I'm not taking a 2% with OrthoFi or 2.5% with OrthoFi, when really you're looking at saving $3,000 or whatever it is on those pennies of the rate, and not even looking at the additional fees that are being charged to your true rate. And so I would highly encourage you guys, if you have that concern, to go look, and don't call the credit card processing fee company for it, because they're not going to be open with you about it. That's not their job. Get it printed and have someone that can look at it for you and explain it to you. So now that I understand the credit card processing fees, I've heard that OrthoFi fees are really expensive. So let's take a look at that, as that should be a concern for anyone wanting to sign up, and see what that actually looks like for our practice. So pre-OrthoFi, or let's go over the national average first. So national average practices engage, once again, which are probably slightly superior to the true national average. The patient AR delinquency rate is 2.87. The insurance delinquency rate is 2.32, and the overall is 5.19, meaning the net collection rate is almost 97%. Our practice in 2019 was pretty close to average on the overall delinquency rate, but we are at 96.6, so slightly off, but pretty much average. Our first full year of using OrthoFi, our delinquency rate went down to 1.5%. Our insurance delinquency rate went down to 0.5%, and our overall delinquency rate went down to 2%. So that's huge, which increased our net collection rate to 99.79%, almost 100%. What does that mean as far as our fees that we've paid OrthoFi versus the increase in what they've collected for us? So what we did is we ended up having a return on investment from after paying all fees to OrthoFi of gaining $22,000. So because they collected so much more, 3% more for us, we actually gained $22,000 after we paid them compared to what we would have collected if we did it on our own. So we paid them around $80,000, and they collected $102,000 additional compared to the 96.6%. And when I have lectured in the past for other companies, I get asked a lot, what are you doing with your financials? And I always kind of say, well, lately I haven't had to worry about it because we have OrthoFi. And so what I did is I said, I actually want to know, like, what are we paying? And I did not expect for it to be a positive number. I expected me to say, okay, well, we paid them this, but they increased our collections by this, so we really only paid them this. But what it turned out to be is that they collected, just by collecting at a higher rate compared to the national average, which was what we actually used their services for them to get to collect us $22,000 more that we wouldn't have seen. So we practically got to use their services for zero cost to us and bring home value, which is really fun. Now I get to say that when I lecture, but that was fun for me to learn. But what is that? Now let's look at our performance on growth and see how that ties in. So this is just the collections part. If you just want to talk about fees only, collections versus what you pay. But let's look at the growth that we also had starting the month that we began using OrthoFi. So pre-OrthoFi, 2020 is kind of a funny year too because of COVID, as everyone knows. So we took our first full year of using OrthoFi, which is only a few months after we started using it, and then the year before that we didn't use it. So in 2019, we had 339 starts. Our same day starts, like I said earlier, were 34%. In 2021, we had 510 starts, and our compound annual growth rate was 23%. And our same-day starts were 73% on average, and our net improvement was 50.6% on production. Now that is over 2 years, but if you narrow it down just to annual growth rate, so act like 2021, take out the stuff that happened in 2020 as well, it's 23%. Okay, well, everyone had a great year in 2021. So how does that relate to the industry average? So we actually took this and took the industry averages out of our growth to see how much growth was left. So our same-day starts improvement went up 115%, which was 323% higher than average, which we talked about earlier. Our annual production improvement was 23% year over year. If you take out all average market growth in OrthoFi practices, what's left on that is still an increase of 15% over. And so that was 8%. So that's more than 200% more than the other practices on their year over year annual growth rate. So now we know collections performance, we know growth performance. What does this mean overall? What's the big picture here? So if we're talking about penny wise and pound foolish, and you say, oh, well, we pay OrthoFi a lot, and you don't look at the value that it brought to your practice with all of the services that it brings, plus the return on investment, you may try to say, I'm not going to use them or discontinue your service with them. But our total production growth rate was 51%. Incremental production growth rate net of the market growth was 29%. And the compounded growth rate was 23%, which I said almost 200%. I'm sorry, it was 184% higher than the average industry rate. Like we said, our same day starts, our adjusted collection return on investment was a positive number, 22,000 extra after paying our fees. Annual net production return on investment was 583,000. So what does this mean? This means after paying all the OrthoFi fees and after taking out what the average practice would have grown or what we would have grown in the past, we still were up an extra $583,000 after starting to use this service in our first year. And I truly believe that's because of a lot of the benefits in all of those systems that we have had, and we'll go over that in just a second. And so our total investment to them the fees we paid them ended up being 2.8% of our net production. And our return on investment was over 6 times. And so I love this. Assets put money in your pocket and liabilities take money from your pocket. And so what I can tell you is that OrthoFi has absolutely been an asset to our practice. I will also say our TCs have done an amazing job because they were already above industry average. So I have no idea if they're on here or not, but if they are, kudos to what they've been able to accomplish and on board with OrthoFi. Our TCs, when it came to the onboarding process with OrthoFi, were very eager to learn. And so instead of making everything an obstacle, like, oh, it's hard or it's not working, they would talk with OrthoFi and help get the systems learned so they could utilize all the practices and softwares and management systems that they offer us to help our practice. And so this is just a cost model. I always like to use the word partnering with dental monitoring or Spark or on-demand orthodontist or OrthoFi, whoever it is. For some reason, our industry outsourcing has a negative vibe to it, but outsourcing, partnering, whatever it is, if you can find partners that are made for our profession to make our lives easier and better, and they have employees that we don't have to train, that don't call into work, that show up when we need them, that answer the phone, can take care of everything and help streamline these things in your practice, what does that mean? Well, if you start growing and you're trying to keep your practice staffed for the growth, this orange line represents that. So you grow a certain amount and then you say, okay, I need to hire someone. And that's where these jumps are in the line, the vertical jumps, because you have to increase the cost and increase the people in there that's needed to support the growth in your practice. With OrthoFi, represented as the blue line, you have more of a stable upsell line because the growth goes with your practice. So you never have to overdo staffing just to take care of some of these administrative duties that OrthoFi helps us with at the beginning before you can actually afford to pay for the person fully. And so for the majority of the time, using OrthoFi always falls below where that growth is and stays more stable for your expense report. And so you only pay for what you need as you need it. One thing that I love to do is listen to Audible and read, usually Audible now, because I'm always on the go. And I know many people have probably read the book, Never Eat Alone. One thing that he says in it is wherever you are in life right now and whatever you know as a result of the ideas, experiences, and people you have interacted with in your life. And anything that I have said tonight or that I have learned from our practice or at a meeting or a conference is definitely due to people in our industry and mentors and my partner, and anyone that has helped get us to where we are. And so I would say surround yourself by people who are like-minded and understand this type of philosophy in their practices, and then engulf it and move forward because it's going to help you. And that's what I feel like blessed that I've been introduced to people that have allowed me to use them as mentors as well. And so I just want to thank everyone for being here. And here's my personal information if anyone has questions that they don't feel comfortable asking tonight, and I can be happy to help get back to them, and we'll open it up for questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Carter. Got a couple questions here that I'd love to hit you with. So real quick, again, if you guys have questions, just submit them on the Q&A. We'll do a couple of them here, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So the first one is from team, I always pronounce this wrong, but Demas Orthodontics. So as you leverage technology, and whether it's any kind of technology, whether it's aligners or something like OrthoFi, like the lab bills in doing so are increasing, right? And a lot of consultants have talked about the need to have less staff with the increased technology, increased fees, and increased overhead costs. Can you talk a little bit how kind of the flow, like what's happened with your staff, the number of staff you have, the challenges that you faced? Have you had to increase staff? Have you decided to decrease staff? Have you realigned kind of roles and responsibilities? Like, what has been the approach that you've taken in your practice to kind of overcome some of those things?
Okay, so unless you live in some hidden gem of the United States that I need to know about, as far as I'm aware, most everyone that I've talked to is either shorthanded with our team or is finding it hard to find employees that fit with the culture of their office. And so one thing that we have not done is fire anybody. We haven't said, okay, well, we got OrthoFi and monitoring, so we don't need y'all anymore, you're out the door. That's not how it works. A lot of times people need the time. And so there's always other duties and tasks and jobs in the office that these people can now focus better on and do a better job of, just like following up with pending more or focusing more on, systems in the practice or quality control versus, sitting on the phone with insurance verification. And so we did not fire anyone. And I wouldn't say that this is meant to just come in and replace your FC. What it can do is allow, as your team changes or as transformation happens in your practice or as you lose employees, for those effects to be less significant. And so we have less employees now than we did in 2019. And that's with growth of the practice. And so our goals have been to maximize partners in ortho that will help take tasks that constantly have to be trained and monitored for accuracy, and give those to people that have actually come into our industry, wanted to work alongside orthodontists, and make those systems and processes, or give those systems and processes to them so we can do what we can do better.
Awesome. So next question here is from Alvaro Malagra from with Ohio State. How long did it take to fully integrate the OrthoFi system and systems and workflow into your practice? What would be the easiest way to get started? And if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently?
Okay. Probably a better question for our team because they did such an amazing job, but OrthoFi does an amazing job at setting up pre-training meetings and pre-training sessions before you're ever even allowed to just jump in and put it in your practice. So it's not like, okay, here's your account, go for it, figure it out on your own. No, they do multiple sessions with you, make sure you understand it, make sure you understand all the processes. And then I remember after we were onboarded, we had a period of time where our team was closely connected, I believe in Slack with OrthoFi. It could be different now. And they would just get on and ask questions. Hey, we're confused on how to upload something, or can you explain to us how to add a miscellaneous charge to a contract? Or if they're watching this, they're probably laughing at me because I've never done this part, but they made it easy enough to where I don't do anything with it, and my team understands it and loves it. So
that's awesome. So I mean, I love the fact that even to that point, right? I love the fact that you really empowered your team to really take a lot of ownership and accountability in the practice, right? And you talked a little bit about in the beginning of why you looked at partnering with anybody, and there's those core buckets, and you and I have talked offline about some of the things that you were looking for in not just OrthoFi, but really any kind of technology, whether it's dental monitoring or why you started working with Spark. And one of the things you talked about was your staff and the quality of life and what you felt like they were kind of feeling burnout. Where now you look at your team now, and you haven't hired people, you've grown substantially. And part of that I would have to imagine part of that is your team. The people that you have are really bought in and really take a lot of ownership of their, not only their role, but the practice. And I'd love for you to just talk a little bit how you've kind of created that culture within your practice.
So one thing I'll never envision this. We had very, very sweet employees, and we had like 3 or 4 people that would always be trying to verify insurance and tag team it and do whatever they need to do. And there was multiple times I was coming in on the weekends to take care of doctor work that needed to be done in the practice, or staying late. And we were drowning a little bit in all these administrative duties, and our team would work through lunch or stay after, etc. But more importantly, if I came in on the weekend, there was usually someone there, and they were usually working on insurance stuff. And I remember thinking, like, there's no reason these people should be here. Like, they should be at home with their families right now. And I appreciate their work ethic and their willingness to come in and make sure that everything's ready for patients, but this isn't how it's supposed to be. And so taking just that alone off of their plates has exactly allowed them to focus better on other tasks. So answering the phone more, greeting patients when they walk in the door, getting patients when they walk in for their new patient exam, etc. But as far as creating the culture, I joined a practice that was already in existence, and there was I feel blessed. We're in a smaller town, so maybe that's part of it too, that there was already kind of a team camaraderie already built into the practice of being there for each other and helping them. They went through the growth with us, and they went through things getting busy, and then also have stayed around to watch some of that come back and take some of those duties off their plates. And I'm not sure what would happen if I walked in and I was like, hey, OrthoFi is not here anymore. We're gonna have to start getting all that information for the forms again and verify the insurance. I'm not sure what they would do, but I know that they have found many other ways to keep themselves busy and help our practice in other ways. And I think any team member in practices should have no concern. And if you do, you probably should look in the mirror and say, like, where can I be a better team member? Because our team members instantly found other things that they can do to become more valuable for the practice.
When you use, whether it's OrthoFi or other companies, I mean, you're putting all your information, into their system, right? So with OrthoFi, you're putting, all the information into OrthoFi. I forget, remind me what practice management software you use, Dr. Carter?
We use Dolphin.
You use Dolphin, great. So OrthoFi integrates with Dolphin. So obviously there's you don't have to worry about kind of dual data entry there. But do you ever have concerns about what if you're going to lose all that data, or if your staff is dual enter, if you were to ever leave OrthoFi?
So I don't think that we have to really put much into OrthoFi because it does merge with Dolphin. It just automatically links. If we were to ever, I don't think we have a contract with OrthoFi. I'm sorry that this is how much I don't have to deal with it, because y'all make it easy for us. If we were to ever like slow down using it, I don't worry about it because we have an online portal. I can access it from anywhere. I'm sure OrthoFi has their own backup system. I have no doubt. I think that if you worry about that, you could just copy your notes into Dolphin, but I'm not sure that's necessary.
Yeah, and hopefully,
I don't know if I answered that question or not.
Yeah, I think obviously there's always a worry about of dual data entry. I mean, if you're integrated with us, obviously we would transfer that information. Hopefully we are able to prove our value to you guys where you're not worried about leaving OrthoFi. That's obviously,
I guess that's why I'm not worried about it or haven't thought about it, because I mean, especially after what I just presented, like, why would anyone leave? I mean, okay, I'd rather not have the $22,000 and take all those tasks back on and not grow. Like, I don't know. It's not something I've considered, so I'm not worried about it.
So this one from Sean at Dental Monitoring. So it's kind of a vendor related question, but I think it's an interesting one, not only from a vendor perspective, but it's also great, I think, for all the practices as well, to understand kind of that relationship. So from your experience, how does a vendor or sales rep, become a partner? How do you partner really well with your vendors, your OrthoFi OSMs, and how have you kind of approached that, and how has it brought value versus just kind of thinking about it just like another sales rep, right? Like how does partnering even create more value to you as a practice owner as well?
Correct. Number one is be kind. So, your sales reps that are out there, if it's a doctor asking you a question, which I know it's not, they're just as important as any team member in your practice. And so if they don't help get the products you need when you need them, or they're not honest and open with communication about what's going on in their company, then how can it be a good partner for your practice? And so number one, like, respect them that way, and don't just shun them when they show up in your practice because you're too busy for them. Just as we want new patients to come in our practice and we want them to start with us, they also have to feed their families, and they want to come in our practice and tell us about the product they believe in. And we do the same. We beg for that from our patients, like, come to our office and see what we have to offer you. So I just look at it the same as that, through those like goggles and eyes. Now, on the flip side, as a rep, be genuine and don't be overly pushy. Figure out where, actually get to know a practice as if you were an employee there, because like I'm saying, I want companies that have reps that, if I show up at a conference and I'm walking down the hallway, it's really amazing when someone's like, hey, how are you? And I've met them once, but they're one of my reps, because they actually came in and tried to get to know our practice or understand us, versus just, hey, here's my product. Can you buy it? Can you buy it? Can you buy it? And so really try to understand every doctor, what their needs are, and put yourself as if you actually were an employee in their practice every day. Where do you think you could help if you can? Is your product right for them? It's not going to be right for everyone in most cases, but there are some products that should be in every office, and then there's some products that can't be. So depending on who's asking that. I think you said it was dental monitoring, so should be in every office, but um, no, just be genuine and go in and actually try to be a part of that practice versus seeing it as a sales pitch.
Yeah, and I mean, just to kind of piggyback on that, I think I think that's some really great points, and I think one thing from our perspective is I think the more you understand that, when you look at, I could speak for OrthoFi here, and I'm sure I can speak to dental monitoring as well on this. So, we're not just looking to be, get a one sale, right? We really truly believe in partnering with practices, and that's why we have dedicated, or all of our practices have a dedicated ortho success manager, kind of account manager, that does monthly business reviews with our practices and really tries to help them get the most out of our system, and can really sit down and kind of tie different pieces of data together, right? If you're seeing this in your practice, what does it mean downstream? And if we kind of improve this metric, what does that mean for your production or same day starts? And they can really sit down with you and do so much more than just, hey, I need kind of a workaround on this or whatever it might be. There's so much more they can do from you. And so, for our OrthoFi users out there, please, take advantage of those. They can help you with doing, pricing, comparisons for your area. They can help you look at, all these different things beyond just OrthoFi, right? They can help you really dive into data and what it means for your practice. So I think the more you realize that, these vendors, we really try to treat as a partnership, the more you're gonna get out of it. We don't automate everything like a lot of, the kind of different software systems out there. We're human. We have 370 plus employees that are here for you and here to support you. And yeah, we do a lot of things to automate things to make things more efficient for your practice systems and different steps. But at the end of the day, there's humans that are here, acting really as an extension of your practice. And the better you do, the better we do. And we really try to approach everything we do with that kind of lens. So another of the questions we got was why should I use OrthoFi instead of having a designated team or person to do billing? And you talked a little bit about this, but you and I have talked a little bit kind of offline about this. And so I'd love if you could maybe kind of talk about, what it was like previous to OrthoFi. And when you and I talked of what kind of drew OrthoFi, billing and collections wasn't even actually like on your list of things originally. And you had some things of kind of what you knew and what you didn't know about it. But I'd love for you kind of just talk about, what it was like previous to OrthoFi, and then, why, in your opinion, I know you hit a lot about it kind of in the presentation, but, kind of at a high level, why you would say it's a valuable thing to do instead of, continuing to do it in-house like you were.
So first, I think no matter what your FC is telling you or however things are being adjusted in your management software system, OrthoFi is collecting at such a higher rate. So no brainer there. They're collecting more money than what we pay them. So why would you hire it to someone in your practice when they can do probably a better job and at no cost, maybe no cost to you. Another thing that is nice about OrthoFi is if they can't collect it, they reimburse you. So it used to just be on collections, now it's on production. But the thing is if they can't collect it, they reimburse you the fees that they would have charged. And so essentially, if they can't get the job done and they've spent time trying, you're not paying them if you don't collect the money. Versus someone in-house, they're going to spend most of their time on the patients that probably won't end up paying, all those delinquent patients. And then you're paying them to get money that's never going to come. And they're not going to give it back to you. So like you can't get your salary that you paid that employee back if they don't collect it. And so that's another reason that I would definitely not do it in-house. But it's not just a billing management. There's other companies out there that just do payment processing. OrthoFi is a series of software systems and a series of technologies and a series of humans in the background, helping streamline all of those things that were in the hexagons, helping streamline all of that. So every single aspect of that, they have something to do with and help with those. And so it's not just one person with billing. Maybe you have one person that can do billing, but in our practice, we had one person doing it at a level a little bit lower than what OrthoFi is doing it. and was spending, I think, 6 days a month on average, taking care of just pulling payments and making sure that all of that worked out. And so, and that doesn't include the insurance verification or any other services they offer. So, there's absolutely zero reason I would ever consider going back, especially when I know I don't have to worry about if the employee shows up. I don't have to worry about if they move, if they relocate, training someone new, embezzlement is out the window, all of those things.
One of the questions we've got, I can answer this one was does OrthoFi integrate with Gauge? And the answer there is yes. So, Gauge is a great partner. I mean, obviously they have a lot of, data and insights, that are, especially on the clinical side of the business, where, with OrthoFi, you really have a single point of truth on all the metrics and a lot of things that we collect, and that we track that you wouldn't have in your, practice management software or even with Engage alone. You can also do a lot of comparisons. So you can compare yourself, obviously regional, you compare yourself to other OrthoFi users. So if that's something you're interested in, please let us know. And we would, be more than happy to kind of show you what that integration looks like from a practice management software standpoint. We also integrate with Dolphin, Cloud9, and we just officially have launched our integration with Ortho2. Edge. So if those are a practice management software system you use, you have that benefit as well. So a lot of great shout outs to you, Janelle Baum. No questions here. Just wanted to give a shout out to Alyssa. She's awesome. Explained everything you said well. So with that, I think that's all of the majority of the questions. I think if there's anything we missed, we'll make sure to follow up and hit any directly with you. One of them was how much OrthoFi charge the practice for all of its services. So as Dr. Emory-Carter showed, I mean, there's a lot of misconceptions there around price. If you think it's more expensive, if you think it's expensive, I think you'd really be surprised. Our practice is average. Our fees all in look typically around 2 to 3% of your practice's net production. And as Dr. Carter showed, I mean, there's or discussed, there's a lot of performance guarantees, things that we have as well. So we'd love to talk with you about what it looks like with your practice and schedule a demo. We would, if you have any questions, we can really dive deeper into what it looks like for your practice, and what that ROI looks like at an individual level for you as well. So I'm going to share something really quick. But with that, again, I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Thank you, Dr. Emory-Carter, for doing this with us. We really appreciate it. One thing I did want to talk about really quick is, again, limited time offer right now. If you do a demo before September 30th, you can receive $3,000 off your setup fee when you sign up with OrthoFi. And on top of that, the first 3 practices that attend this webinar that sign up will also get free implementation with OrthoFi. So you scan that QR code to schedule a demo. So it's a really big offer. This is literally just something we're doing just for people that register and are attending this webinar. So if you're interested, now's the time. We'd love to chat with you more to see if it's a good fit for your practice. Before we go, I meant to ask you about this a little bit earlier. I'm really intrigued about ODO. I know it's something you're really passionate about, and I wanted to give you a couple minutes to maybe talk a little bit more about ODO and kind of the benefit it's bringing to so many different patients, in the areas that you guys are kind of piloting this at right now.
Well, I didn't expect that, so I appreciate it. In case you can't tell, I love finding the right people for us to partner with outside of our practice and take some of the headaches out of our practice and the frustrations and dealing with hiring and firing, et cetera. And so that's where OrthoFi's come in. That's where dental monitoring's come in. That's where I've, switched our practice to Spark, et cetera, because those things have helped with the same thing. And ODO is based on the same philosophy. So it's on-demand orthodontist, and it's practically built to help streamline and take some of the treatment sequences and systems and processes from the treatment plan to setup design and staging to using dental monitoring to help monitor the patient and help understand how those protocols can be set up, et cetera, and taking better care of our patients overall, and also making sure a lot of dental monitoring's philosophy there, that the patients are seen when they need to be seen instead of when we think they need to be seen. So I don't necessarily love the term like you only will have to see your aligner patients 4 times, but it's more if your aligner patients only need to be seen 4 times, let's make sure that's the only times they come into practice. And so On-Demand Orthodontist is started by an amazing orthodontist, Dr. John Warford, and there's a few others, Dr. and Judd Johns, who used to work for Ormco as a part of it, and then Dr. Mike DePascal, who I think so many people love and respect in our profession, is an incredible orthodontist that you could have an opportunity to, have him kind of back you up on some of your cases. And I'm excited about what it's going to bring to our profession. I'm excited about the opportunity to outsource in a completely new and different way, and should be exciting for our profession in the future.
And is there like a website where does someone go to learn more or kind of read more about it?
OnDemandOrthodontist.com, or they will also have a booth at Orthopreneurs if anyone's going, or you can reach out to anyone I just mentioned directly and we'll connect you.
Awesome. Well, with that, we'll call it a night. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for being here with us tonight. Spend your evening with us. And Dr. Emory-Carter, thank you again for leading this tonight and for everything you do, not only as a partner of OrthoFi, but for our profession in general. So thank you, guys. And we look forward to our next webinar series and hopefully seeing a lot of you at Orthopreneurs here in a couple of weeks.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.